We can only guess that our founding fathers who authored the Declaration of Independence in 1776 were authentic when describing the new character of the new nation which had just declared its independence. Free to address an idealism inherent in a new nation that was no longer obligated to the dictates of a monarchy, our founding fathers included these words: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Understanding the nature of equality has confounded our nation since its inception. Even the principal author of the Declaration, Thomas Jefferson, owned slaves. Either equality was not all that self-evident, or people with black skin were somehow exempt from being counted among those who were entitled to basic civil rights. Women, too, were precluded from the equality our founding fathers deemed self-evident. Homosexuals were exempt from everything remotely connected with equality. Homosexuality was treated as a criminal offense in all 13 original colonies. In New York, Vermont, Connecticut, and South Carolina, penalty for homosexuality was death. Thomas Jefferson advocated dismemberment as the penalty for homosexuals in Virginia and authored a bill to that effect. What then does equality mean when obviously so many people are denied the privilege or actually the right to equality, since this is how we were created, ostensibly by the Creator himself? Literally every year on this weekend, honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I take an account of our nation's record on equality. And I am joined by many in trying to assess just where we really are with regards to the fundamental human rights we as Americans proudly claim to be so self-evident. This year, in August, we'll mark the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, where Dr. King proclaimed that equality remained the stuff of dreams. Many in our nation today, however, and I mean liberals as well as conservatives, act as though King's dream has become true because our nation elected a black president. If anything, Obama's election and re-election has lit the fuse of a dormant racism where blatant disrespect for the president is commonplace, and the suppression of minority voters in both North and South threatens to unravel the foundation of our country's proud democracy. In 1965, standing on the steps of the Alabama state capitol, Dr. King said, "We must have our freedom now. We must have the right to vote. We must have equal protection under the law." This year, United States Supreme Court justices will likely take another look at the constitutionality of the signature legacy of that civil rights era, the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In 2009, the court signaled it had some reservations about the law that requires the federal review of changes in election procedures in parts of the country with a history of discrimination, mostly in the South. Chief Justice Roberts wrote, "We are now a very different nation than the one that first enacted the Voting Rights Act." Really? This year, the court will get to rule as it hears cases concerning redistricting, voter identification requirements, reducing opportunities for early voting in minority neighborhoods, and the paucity of voting booths in minority neighborhoods, which always seem infected with mechanical failures. Pamela Karlan, a law professor at Stanford, said it will be interesting to see if the justices worry half as much about the emergent restrictions on voting as the worries about restrictions on political spending. At his confirmation hearing in 2005, Chief Justice Roberts said that judges are like umpires in that they do not make the rules but merely apply them. Nobody ever went to a ball game to see the umpire. Well, this year, our Supreme Court justices will make some important calls, all of them pertaining to the meaning of equality. They will make the umpire calls on affirmative action in higher education admissions. They will make the umpire call on same-sex marriage. And they will make the umpire call on the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It all hinges on understanding what equality really means. It's a term or a concept or an ideal that has bedeviled our country from its very beginnings. Now, if we desire to affirm the principle that we are all created equal, then Dr. King helps us to understand a few things about the Creator who surely intended equality to be self-evident. King writes, "At the center of the Christian faith is the affirmation that there is a God in the universe who is the ground and essence of all reality, a being of infinite love and boundless power. God is the creator, sustainer, and conserver of values. In contrast to the ethical relativism of totalitarianism, Christianity sets forth a system of absolute moral values and affirms that God has placed within the very structure of the universe certain moral principles that are fixed and immutable." Although spoken with the flourish of a great Baptist minister and orator, Dr. King's articulation of the Creator as the source of an immutable morality extends far beyond the scope of Christianity. I mean, if you had to prepare an elevator speech as a Unitarian describing the tenets of your faith, you would do it justice by affirming the Creator as both infinite love and boundless power, conserving and sustaining immutable moral principles. I mean, there's not a church, synagogue, or mosque that would kick you out for holding close to those beliefs. So is not the belief in God, whatever image you may want to employ for God, but isn't the belief in the existence of infinite and unconditional love that sustains fixed and immutable values, isn't that which leads us to conclude that all people were created as equals? For Dr. King, this love, which just breathes the value of equality and fairness and respect and mutuality, this love stemming from a divine source becomes the dominant value, justifying the confrontation of inequality, such as racial strife.